Trying to start on time here, folks. Good morning. Welcome to the May 2009 meeting of the Federal Communications Commission. Do any of my colleagues have any opening remarks they feel compelled to deliver? If not, Madam Secretary, what excitement do you have in store for us this morning?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you. Good morning, Commissioners. Today's agenda includes 2 items for your consideration and 1 presentation. First, you will consider a report and order concerning the requirements of interconnected VoIP providers when discontinuing service. Second, you will consider a report and order and further notice of proposed rulemaking concerning the interval for porting a customer's telephone number in response to wireline and intermodal port requests. The last item on your agenda is a presentation on the current status of the digital television transition and the plans for the final 30-day push to prepare consumers for the nationwide transition on June 12th. This is your agenda for today. Both of today's agenda items will be presented by the Wireline Competition Bureau.
It is indeed an excellent agenda. Thank you very much. Ms. Veach, would you proceed, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The Commission has taken steps to allow for the development and growth of IP-enabled services while maintaining certain necessary consumer protections as American consumers increasingly turn to interconnected voice-over Internet protocol service for their communications needs. Today, the Wireline Competition Bureau is pleased to present for your consideration a report and order that adopts important measures to ensure that consumers of interconnected VoIP service are protected from the abrupt loss of service without notice. With me at the table today are Bill Dever, Acting Chief of the Competition Policy Division, Tim Stelzig, Assistant Chief in the Division, and Rodney McDonald, Senior Attorney in the Division. I'd also like to thank Melissa Kirkle and John Reel for all their hard work on the item. Rodney will now present the order.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. American consumers have increasingly turned to IP-enabled services for their communications needs. The Commission has encouraged the expansion of these IP-enabled service offerings while at the same time working to ensure that essential consumer protection requirements apply to these new services. For instance, many consumers have started to replace the traditional voice services that they receive over circuit switch networks with interconnected voice over Internet protocol or VoIP service, and the Commission has taken several steps to make sure that these consumers still enjoy certain protections we have all come to expect, like access to 911 emergency calling and number portability. The order before you takes similar steps to ensure that consumers of interconnected voice service are protected from the abrupt loss of their service without proper notice. Specifically, the order extends to providers of interconnected VoIP service the consumer protection obligations contained in Section 214 of the Communications Act. Section 214 of the Act prohibits carriers from discontinuing, reducing, or impairing service without first seeking authority from the Commission. The Commission has adopted certain requirements under Part 63 of its rules to clarify this obligation, and the order before you extends to providers of interconnected VoIP service the same streamlined discontinuance obligations that already apply to domestic, non-dominant wireline telecommunications carriers under the Commission's rules. Thus, the order specifically requires interconnected VoIP service providers to notify all affected customers of their plans to discontinue, reduce, or impair service to a community, and to provide customers with an opportunity to inform the Commission of resultant hardships. The order requires interconnected voice service providers to then file an application with the Commission seeking authority for their proposed action, and allows the application of interconnected voice service providers to be automatically granted on the 31st day after the Commission releases public notice of the application, unless the Commission notifies the applicant that the grant will not be automatically effective. The order finds that the extension of these minimally burdensome but critically important requirements to interconnected VoIP service providers appropriately balances several of the Commission's competing objectives. One objective is to ensure that consumers have a reasonable amount of time to make alternative arrangements before any disruption in service, thereby avoiding any disruption of 911 service in particular. This is balanced with allowing service providers ease of exit from competitive markets and minimizing the regulation of the Internet and other interactive computer services. The Bureau respectfully requests that the Commission adopt this item and request editorial privileges. Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing this good and pro-consumer item to us. Over the past several years, we have seen widespread adoption by the American public of dynamic new telecommunications technologies and services, and we're going to see even more dramatic deployments in this new age of broadband. We welcome and we encourage this growth. As change occurs, however, we always have a continuing obligation to protect consumers, and we discharge that item, as you so ably noted, that obligation in this item, and we smooth the way when IP voice services replace traditional voice services. Today's order applies the same discontinuance, reduction, and impairment of service requirements to interconnected voice over Internet protocol providers that we currently apply to non-dominant carriers. The order requires interconnected VoIP providers to notify customers in a reasonable amount of time that consumers don't find themselves left unexpectedly without voice service, a service that we have all come to expect and rely on. In addition, interconnected VoIP providers are required to notify officials in states where services offered of any impending loss of services to those communities. These requirements do not strike me as burdensome, and in helping consumers and states along, I believe they serve the public interest. So thanks to the Bureau for its forward-looking work on this, and to my colleagues for agreeing once again to put consumers first. Commissioner Edelstein.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing forward an array of pro-consumer items this morning, beginning with this one. It's really an overdue step to protect VoIP users. And I, of course, support this order because it reaffirms our commitment to consumer protection and public safety as consumers continue to migrate to new and innovative services like VoIP. Interconnected VoIP users will no longer be subject to abrupt discontinuance of service, as carriers will now be required to give them sufficient notice before discontinuing, reducing, or impairing service. The bottom line is that interconnected VoIP users will now enjoy the same protection as users of traditional telephone service. This is good news for the millions of Americans who subscribe to VoIP. We already have extended, as you've noted, disabilities access and privacy requirements to interconnected VoIP. And as we've recognized for a while now, these users expect the same protection as traditional telephone technologies. This is critical since we expect that more people will switch to VoIP, especially as we push broadband availability throughout the country. Today's action is not merely about consumer convenience, though. It's a serious public safety matter. If a subscriber doesn't receive sufficient warning that their interconnected VoIP provider will cut off service, that consumer could be left without telephone and, of course, 911 service. The Commission should have given consumers these protections years ago, as we've seen interconnected VoIP service providers go out of business and strand consumers. Today is also a victory for competition. By giving interconnected VoIP users the same protections as traditional telephone users, we further position this growing technology as a direct competitor against more established services. So thank you, Mr. Chairman Copps, for bringing this forward, and thank you to the Bureau for bringing forward this item so efficiently. This is really government at its best, taking steps to protect citizen safety and well-being.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, in the vernacular, we've been referring to this order as the VoIP discontinuance order. I don't want anyone to think that somehow the FCC is outlawing VoIP, okay? We're not discontinuing this wonderful new technology. But I'm pleased to support today's order. Consumers are increasingly finding that interconnected VoIP services are a substitute for traditional telephone service. In some instances, interconnected VoIP service providers exited markets or went out of business altogether and did not notify their customers beforehand. Consumers only knew something was awry once they lost dial tone. In fact, this happened to me about 3 years ago. Today's order allows consumers of interconnected VoIP service to receive the same courtesy of a notice of discontinuance of service as a consumer of any other type of phone service. Such notice gives consumers a reasonable opportunity to switch providers and is consistent with our previous actions, as was said before, to ensure parity regarding obligations for E911, universal service, customer proprietary network information protections, disability access, and local number portability. Many thanks to the acting chairman for his leadership on this and for the Bureau for your hard work on this matter. Thank you so much.
Absent any call for further discussion and cognizant of the fact that we are indeed not calling for the discontinuance of VoIP, We will now call for a vote. All those in favor, please so signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. No nays. The ayes have it, so ordered, and editorial privileges as requested are granted. Madam Secretary, could you call the next item, please?
The second item is entitled Local Number Portability Porting Interval and Validation Requirements, Telephone Number Portability.
Ms. Veach, it's all yours once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're now pleased to present for your consideration a report and order and further notice of proposed rulemaking that takes important steps to ensure that consumers are able to port their telephone numbers to new service providers efficiently and to enhance competition for all communication services. Ann Stevens, Deputy Chief in the Competition Policy Division, and Melissa Kirkle, Attorney Advisor in the division, have joined me at the table, along with Bill. I'd also like to acknowledge Al Lewis, Dina Shetler, Marilyn Jones, Marv Sachs, Margaret Daly, Jay Atkinson, and Marcus Mayer for all their hard work and contributions to the item. Melissa will now present the item.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Local Number Portability, or LNP, enhances the ability of consumers to choose the telecommunications provider that best suits their needs by giving them the ability to retain their phone number when switching providers. Although consumers have had the option to port numbers between telephone service providers for a number of years, the current 4-business-day porting interval for wireline-to-wireline and intermodal ports can hinder the effectiveness of consumers' options. Delays in porting cost consumers time and money and limit consumer choice and competition because when consumers get frustrated with slow porting, they may abandon their efforts to switch carriers. The order before you takes steps to ensure that consumers are able to port their telephone numbers efficiently and to enhance competition for all communication services. Specifically, the order requires all entities subject to the Commission's L&P rules, including interconnected VoIP providers and their numbering partners, to complete port requests for simple wireline-to-wireline and intermodal ports within 1 business day, unless a longer period is requested by the new provider or the customer elects otherwise. The order directs the North American Numbering Council, or the NANCY, to develop L&P provisioning process flows that take into account this shortened porting interval, and to submit these flows to the Commission 90 days after the effective date of this order. The order provides affected carriers 9 months after the NANCY submits its revised provisioning flows to the Commission to implement the reduced porting interval, except with regard to small carriers, which receive an extra 6 months. The 1 business day porting interval adopted in the order before you will provide considerable benefits to consumers. However, it is important for both consumers and competition that the Commission remain vigilant in its efforts to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the porting process as technological and market developments demand. Therefore, and in light of the actions taken in today's order, the accompanying further notice of proposed rulemaking asks commenters to refresh the record on what further steps the Commission should take to improve the process of changing providers and provide any new ideas that reflect and build upon the new 1 business day porting interval. The Bureau respectfully requests that the Commission adopt this item and requests editorial privileges. Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing this additional and very important pro-consumer item to the Commission. You know, it had its doubters and detractors early on, to be sure, but number portability has been, I do believe, a significant success for consumers, for the cause of competition, and for the Commission itself. Technology has brought consumers so many ways to help us keep in touch no matter where we are, and one of our most important jobs at the FCC is to facilitate consumers being able to use these new products and services and to use them in a timely fashion. It appears to be the unanimous judgment of this Commission, we'll find out shortly, that a 1-day business porting interval for simple wireline to wireline and intermodal ports best serves consumers and is at the same time altogether doable in the time frame we provide today, and I am pleased to support this item. In the 1996 Telecommunications Act, Congress imposed a number portability obligation on providers so consumers could retain their phone numbers when they switched carriers. This was both consumer-friendly and competition-friendly. As a result, gone are the days when you were bound by your existing service provider, regardless of service quality or rates, simply because you had grown to know and be known by your telephone number. Gone are the days when making that effort to change service providers would include sending cards or making calls to friends and family and colleagues and clients just to make sure others could continue to reach out and touch you. Instead, by easing consumers' ability to change voice service carriers, we encourage providers to become more competitive if they want to keep their customers. Of course, we learned that when switching voice providers, simply allowing consumers to retain their telephone numbers would not be enough to break down barriers to competition. Unlike changes in other types of services, such as video or broadband, when a number is being ported, the provider winning the customer must communicate with the provider losing the customer. This necessary interaction between competitors requires processing and time, both of which allow providers opportunities to make a change in voice providers perhaps unpalatable to just about any consumer. While the wireless industry has adopted a standard 2.5-hour porting interval for wireless-to-wireless ports voluntarily, thereby avoiding most opportunity for mischief, there has been no such industry-wide voluntary interval for wireline-to-wireline and intermodal ports. Thus, the Commission was compelled to implement a mandatory interval so that customers of all voice services can realize the true benefits intended by local number portability. 12 years ago, the Commission implemented a 4-business-day interval for wireline-to-wireline and intermodal simple ports. Since that time, we have considered shortening the interval for such ports and have encouraged the industry to update its standard interval, but to no avail. So today, belatedly, we address the issue, something I proposed we do in the Commission's 2007 Local Number Portability NPRM. At that time, I was optimistic about moving forward with the proceeding, but it took too long. Yet I believe in this order we do, somewhat belatedly, again, what I suggested at that time. While this item does shorten the porting interval significantly, I recognize that many providers will have to make real-world changes in their porting procedures in order to fulfill the requirement. So we herein direct the North American Numbering Council to develop in 90 days new local number portability process flows that take into account the shortened porting interval. Then we give providers time to implement and comply. 9 months, although it may seem to some a long time to implement a much-needed change, strikes me as appropriate given the significant reduction of the current interval and the difficulties posed by our current economic situation. As much as we strive to put together the best possible item, no order is perfect, and this one is no exception. We have a few loose ends still to tie up, other standards surrounding porting processes and non-simple ports. In particular, as the order stands now, the shortened interval still applies only to simple ports. Some of the non-simple ports look no different to consumers than simple ports do, yet the shortened interval adopted in this order will not apply to them. All consumers should be able to benefit from shortened porting intervals. We do, however, take these matters up in the further notice, and I look forward to addressing them in a relatively near time frame. Thanks to our FCC team for their hard work over a long period of time here, and special thanks to my colleagues for pursuing a pro-consumer and achievable position on this item. I welcome their pro-consumer input, and I look forward to witnessing and experiencing the many benefits that will, I am confident, flow from the Commission's adoption of this item. Commissioner Adelstein.
Well, thank you. Today we are moving to help consumers take their numbers from one carrier to another more quickly and more conveniently, something that I think consumers are going to welcome across this country. Several years ago, we extended our porting requirements to interconnected VoIP providers. We also asked if we should shorten the current 4-business-day interval for all carriers. At that time, I called on the Commission to reduce the porting interval even more so that consumers are left waiting no longer than necessary. As many in Congress, among consumer groups, and in the industry have said, there's no doubt we can do better than 4 business days. That standard was set more than a decade ago for wireline-to-wireline ports and more than 4 years ago for intermodal ports. That's practically a lifetime in this industry where technology moves so fast. So I'm pleased that today we're slashing the interval from 4 business days to 1. For a number of years now, wireless carriers have been porting numbers between themselves in a matter of hours. While we recognize there are differences in the back office systems, the time has come to narrow the gap between wireless-to-wireline ports, wireless-to-wireless ports, and intermodal ports. Simply put, consumers should be able to port a number quickly no matter who their carrier is. I'm also pleased we have called upon Nancy to come up with the best way for carriers to work through the sometimes difficult porting process. I also support today's further notice, which asks what other steps we should take to improve the porting process that will build upon this one-day interval. I'm optimistic that this will yield an efficient porting system that will alleviate the potential for anti-competitive gaming that can frustrate the consumer experience. And I'm glad that today's order recognizes that this won't happen overnight. Large carriers will have 9 months to implement the new interval, and smaller carriers who may not have automated their porting systems will have 15 months. And as the chairman said, it might seem like a long time. Indeed, you can create a whole new human being in 9 months. Certainly, we can create a new system for porting. Further, the order recognizes that those carriers that have porting-specific implementation costs will have avenues to recover those costs. So I want to thank Chairman Copps and his staff, especially Jennifer Schneider, who worked tirelessly to create a consensus item that helped us navigate the tricky shoals of this issue, and thanks also to the incredible staff of the Wireline Competition Bureau for all of your hard work and helping us wade through the complex technical aspects of this issue.
Thank you. I never thought of it in quite that context, but it makes a very compelling case. Commissioner McDowell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased that the Commission is acting today to modernize our rules to keep pace with the technological advances and evolving consumer trends. By decreasing the length of time all providers have for porting a telephone number from 4 business days to 1, we are enabling consumers to enjoy the benefits of their market decisions almost as quickly as technology allows. With myriad innovative service offerings emerging every day as a result of a highly competitive marketplace, consumers may want to take advantage of their new choices at a pace that is faster than what was encouraged by our stale rules of yesteryear. We also provide a generous and sensible glide path for implementing the change, 9 months after the North American Numbering Council's review for the largest providers and 15 months for the smallest. I'm confident that a 1 business day interval strikes the proper balance between any costs associated with implementing the change and the economic benefits that will flow to consumers. At the same time, as I have said in the past, I am sympathetic to calls that we provide greater assurance that providers of similar services are subject to similar rules. Regulatory parity is critically important if we are to have a competitive and vibrant marketplace. As always, I welcome additional ideas that may further this goal from interested parties. Therefore, I'm pleased that our further notice serves as an opportunity to examine improving the 1-day business porting interval we adopt today and to refresh the record on any additional steps the Commission may elect to take to improve the process of changing providers. Finally, I want to acknowledge and thank my colleagues, the Chairman Copps and Commissioner Adelstein. Thank you for bringing this very important matter forward. The Commission had sat on this idea for far too long. It was a pleasure to work in such a congenial and collaborative manner to reach today's compromise. And thank you and your staff for all of your assistance and goodwill, and the Bureau as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Always wanting to set a good example, the Commission will now do a nearly instantaneous port to a formal vote. All in favor will please so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The item is adopted. Editorial privileges are granted, with thanks again to the Bureau. And Madam Secretary, would you call our next and final item, please?
The final item on your agenda today is a panel presentation on the current status of the digital television transition and the plans for the final 30-day push to prepare consumers for the nationwide transition on June 12th. FCC DTV Coordinator William Lake will introduce the presentation.
Thank you. We are pleased to have this panel here. I want to, at the outset, thank Bill Lake for the outstanding job he has been doing in coordinating our efforts on DTV, and we all look very much forward to his status report and report on where we go between now and June 12th. Mr. Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The deadline for the DTV transition is exactly 30 days from today. By law, 30 days from now, all full-power TV stations will stop sending the analog signals they have transmitted since television was born. From then on, only viewers who are equipped to receive digital signals will be able to watch those stations free over-the-air programs. The broadcasters know what they need to do. They have a roadmap for completing the transition laid out in a series of orders from the Commission. But not all the viewers are ready. An estimated 3.5 million households have not yet taken the actions they need to take to avoid losing access to over-the-air television. Many of these unready households are in the most vulnerable parts of the population: the elderly, low-income persons, minorities, people with disabilities, and people living in rural and tribal areas. The job that remains for the Commission is to do everything we can to help these people to get ready so they don't lose what is in many cases their only link to news and the world at large. For many people, getting ready starts with ordering a coupon from NTIA and buying a converter box so they can continue to use an older TV. But it only starts there. Some need help in installing the box or in dealing with reception issues that arise from the move to digital. Others need a forceful reminder that this transition really is going to happen and it's only 30 days away. That's where today's message of urgency comes in. Yes, June 12 is Congress's final answer, and we need to motivate and help as many as we can of those 3.5 million households to act in the next 30 days. Kathy Seidel, Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, and Roger Goldblatt, Outreach Advisor to that Bureau, will summarize what the Commission will do in these last 30 days to reach out to those who need help in making the transition. But before they begin, I'd like to express my own thanks to the staff across the Commission who have responded generously with their time and energies to make this transition a success.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for allowing me to provide an update on the FCC's DTV outreach efforts. As you know, we are using a multi-pronged approach. First, we are awarding contracts to entities that will provide in-home converter box installation assistance and to entities that will establish local walk-in centers around the country. People are able to go to these walk-in centers to order a coupon, see how to install and troubleshoot their converter box, and to get answers to questions they may have relating to antenna and other issues. We are also complementing these efforts with important partnerships with the AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps and the International Association of Fire Chiefs, which we will talk about in a little more detail in a moment. Second, we are more proactively utilizing the media to help inform, educate, and alert consumers of the need to take action before June 12th. And finally, in addition to providing support to consumers via the FCC's call center, we continue to utilize FCC staff on the ground in key markets throughout the country. As a result of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the Commission recently received funding especially targeted for education and outreach for programs to educate vulnerable populations, including senior citizens, minority communities, people with disabilities, low-income individuals, and people living in rural areas about the transition, and to provide one-on-one assistance to vulnerable populations, including help with converter box installation. Last month, the Commission issued 18 requests for proposals for 3 distinct grassroots DTV services. First, basic in-home converter box installations. Second, expert in-home DTV services. And third, DTV walk-in centers or clinics. While the Commission requested proposals to serve all communities throughout the country that have not yet fully transitioned, a priority has been given to 49 hotspots identified by the Commission and NTIA as high-risk areas that are in need of greater assistance. FCC staff has worked tirelessly and around the clock to complete the evaluation and selection process in an extremely tight time frame. While the Commission is finalizing the issuance of its grassroots contracts, thus far, we have issued 46 grassroots contracts, 21 for basic in-home installations, 13 for expert in-home DTV services, and 12 for DTV walk-in centers or clinics. We expect to issue more grassroots contracts within the next week. These contracts are geographically dispersed and cover our hotspot markets as well as many rural areas around the country. We anticipate that once all awards are finalized and issued, the basic installation services contracts will include coverage of most or all of the 49 hotspot areas and provide up to 170,000 basic in-home installations. Similarly, we anticipate that the contracts for expert in-home DTV services will cover all 6 regions of the country and will provide up to 48,000 additional installations. In total, we anticipate that our in-home installation service contractors will be able to provide assistance to over 218,000 installations throughout the country. In addition, the Commission has issued contracts thus far for up to 12,400 DTV walk-in help centers and clinics around the country. In the short time frame since contracts were issued, many of the contractors have already begun to advertise their services and to assist consumers. R&D Training and Technology Services in the Southeast region began advertising their services right away by informing 1,000 broadcast outlets and 900 newspapers in their region. These efforts have already resulted in 150 in-home installations for consumers in that region. Similarly, a contractor in Colorado, Highland Hills, has integrated its installation support with voluntary efforts occurring in its community. Highland Hills was able to identify community organizations that are assisting consumers by purchasing the converter boxes for those who cannot afford them even with a coupon. Highland Hills then teams with organizations to ensure that the donated converter boxes are installed by Highland Hills for those in need. The Commission will be closely managing and monitoring its contractors to ensure that at-risk and in-need individuals receive this important assistance prior to June 12th. Despite these efforts, we recognize that there may be consumers who may not prepare in advance of the June 12th transition date. Therefore, grassroots contractor services will remain available for weeks following June the 12th. Additionally, the Commission will be deploying National Civilian Community Corps volunteers and firefighter volunteers organized through the International Association of Fire Chiefs to supplement the efforts of the FCC contractors and Commission staff to fill in any areas that may need additional assistance. The partnership between the FCC and AmeriCorps is placing trained volunteers on the ground in 27 cities nationwide, ranging from Los Angeles, California, to Biloxi and beyond. The NCCC volunteers will receive referrals through the Integrated Call Center here at the FCC. A dedicated team of NCCC volunteers then assist consumers in each of these 27 cities who then need extra assistance with converter box installations. The volunteer program organized by the International Association of Fire Chiefs will provide much-needed assistance as well, especially in smaller and rural communities. The Commission is providing the IAFC this week with a list of areas not being covered by contracts so that the IAFC may work on the FCC's behalf to fill in the gaps through their volunteer recruitment. The International Association of Fire Chiefs and the FCC partnership creates a voluntary program that links community members who may need help installing or using digital television converter boxes with local fire and rescue departments that have volunteered to work with the IAFC and the FCC. This week, the IAFC is actively recruiting departments throughout the country to volunteer for this program. IAFC recruiting efforts are placing special emphasis on identifying and recruiting departments that span the entire country. We have also made great progress in the area of media and consumer messaging. The FCC has recently contracted with Burstyn Marsteller to provide a host of media-related services. Currently, we have received a comprehensive list of media outlets that directly serve our at-risk constituents in the 49 hotspot markets and beyond. This list specifically targets non-English speaking consumers, senior citizens, consumers living in rural and tribal areas, people with disabilities, and low-income communities. This list includes a focus on ethnic and other specialized media. They have also provided us with feedback geared towards ensuring that all of our key messaging is in place and will be effective. As we begin our final push today at the 30-day mark, we're putting into motion a host of media distribution mechanisms to aggressively push all our key messages, lessons, and information out to these targeted media outlets and consumers nationwide. Our goals for the media initiative are simple. First, we'll be supporting all the programs and personnel that have been put into place on the ground. Through our media campaign, all local markets will be fully informed of the walk-in centers and in-home assistance available in their communities, along with other outreach events that will be taking place locally. Our second initiative has been the crafting of messaging to the remaining issues that have been most problematic for consumers to date. These issues include the ever-present need for unprepared consumers to act and to create a sense of urgency to these consumers. In addition, we'll remain focused on scanning and rescanning issues and reception, coverage, and antenna issues. We'll make great efforts to target the messaging to the broadcast markets as well as at-risk consumers because each broadcast market has its own unique and localized issues. A list of additional media-related work that we've undertaken or will be undertaking includes organizing a nationwide soft test on Thursday, May the 21st, conducting a series of satellite media tours, providing key news outlets nationwide with DTV broadcast and print media toolkits, hosting additional press conferences, and targeted advertising placements, if warranted, by conditions in specific communities. In addition, the FCC recently teamed up with the Consumers Union to produce and distribute a consumer guide, DTV Made Easy, that helps viewers prepare for the digital television transition. The 15-page booklet provides clear instructions, smart tips, and colorful diagrams to help consumers get ready for the June 12th transition. The booklet, available in Spanish as well, has been getting excellent reviews throughout communities around the nation. There are copies of the booklet on the tables in the back of the room for those who wish to take one. The FCC recently awarded a contract to enhance our FCC call center as well. Several hundred agents are now working 7 days a week, and we can increase this to as many as 4,000 agents per day as the June 12th deadline nears. This contract also provides us the ability to handle calls from consumers in over 100 languages. I will now turn the presentation over to Roger Goldblatt, who will discuss the FCC's field outreach efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
We kind of see the on-the-ground outreach efforts as basically critical to the success of the transition on June 12th. We have about 180 plus 3 FCC staffers pretty much dedicated to getting the word out, and we appreciate the efforts of all 3 of you, by the way. Thank you very much. Our people on the ground are continuing working with community-based organizations, broadcasters, government officials. We're concentrating on the 49 what we call hotspot areas, but we're also not forgetting all the other parts of the country. It's because we always hear about the 49 hotspots. We care about everybody everywhere. Some examples of some of the efforts that we're doing I'll get into in a second, but our effort now is to hit people where they are, not expect them to come to us. So we're trying to be creative. And actually, I'm going to give some examples and have a little surprise for you all in a few minutes as well. Recently, Governor Strickland of Ohio issued a proclamation designating April 26th to May 2nd as DTV Take Action Week throughout the whole state. FCC provided what we call boots on the ground support to help educate, assist consumers through the transition. On April 26th, one of our FCC staff members was invited in the broadcast booth at the Cleveland Indians game. He demonstrated to the audience how to set up a converter box. He talked about the transition, and he described the actions that they have to take now. We were pleased to reach so many consumers at the baseball game, and actually the Cleveland Indians won during that game as well. So it was a good game for all. In Alabama, FCC staff met with local food bank directors in Empire, Alabama. So we're really concerned about low-income people. A lot of them haven't applied yet for coupons. They haven't gotten the boxes. A lot of times it's because economics. They were so excited to hear the information that our FCC people were invited to their Mother's Day dinner, and they spoke to another 125 at-risk consumers. We're going to constantly focus on low-income consumers. We understand that's one of the major at-risk communities we really got to hit. In New Mexico, which is touted as one of the least prepared states, although we know that's not totally accurate. There's translator issues and other issues. So, but we had a DTV staff person do presentations to students at St. Teresa Middle School, which is part of El Paso, Las Cruces DMA. the classes which had 8 to 25 students for presentation, then scheduled DTV presentations by their students for parents, guardians, and members of the community, where the students presented. And they explained DTV to their parents, to their guardians, to their grandparents. And then computers were made available to sign up for the coupons, to go on to dtv.gov, our excellent webpage, and they could do the mapping tool, find out where walk-in centers are, get all the resources available. We find that going through the youth, children, students, that's the way to reach a lot of our constituencies as well. I've given some examples of the efforts on the ground, but visuals sometimes paint a better picture. We're now going to show 2 news clips from our really great AmeriCorps NCCC partnership. One is Sacramento and one is New Orleans.
First of all, if you're a regular watcher of KCRA 3, you've probably heard about this date, June 12th. That is the deadline the FCC has set for all stations to switch over to broadcasting exclusively in digital. Well, today we caught up with some volunteers who helped some folks get ready.
Well, that's real important if it's going to be changed over.
Leroy Ahrens didn't know how to hook up his digital converter box, but he did know who to call for help, the FCC and some special helpers.
It looks like we found 18 channels, and the box has registered those, and it will remember those channels.
A few months ago, the FCC started a partnership with AmeriCorps, waiting to help people like Leroy.
A senior disabled person, non-English speakers, can contact the FCC and say, hey, we need help with our digital converter box. And the FCC will then contact us.
It takes a relative, it takes a volunteer, it takes anyone who is able to do that to help out with the installation.
The most common problem the troubleshooters run into:
making sure that the wires are connected correctly, and then doing the menu setup with registering the channels and working your way through the menu. It can be confusing.
Today, the fix-it took just a couple of minutes, and then...
Yeah, you can't hear us, though.
Just a few minor adjustments. Yeah, the volume's up to you once you get it hooked up. Okay, again, the deadline for the digital switchover is June 12th. If you have cable or satellite TV or a converter box already, then you're good to go. But if you use an antenna, you're going to need a converter box. And here's the number if you need help. Call 1-888-CALL-FCC. Well, as the sun goes down in Santa Barbara, the concern is that...
That was one, and now we have, that was Sacramento, and now we have New Orleans.
Interstate 310 as alternate routes.
The FCC has set up a new program to help people who are not prepared for the transition to digital television.
On June 12th, analog television broadcasts will end, and that will affect those who have old-style TV sets and use antennas instead of cable or satellite service. Action reporter Bill Capo shows you how you can get help.
Hurricane Katrina changed Needy Chatelain's life drastically, costing him his home and everything he owned.
I mean, I was set good for retirement, everything I wanted, a house, the water came and took it away, and I didn't have nothing no more.
Now he has this one room in his sister's house, and at age 91, with health problems, he watches television all day. But his small set is an old one that will need a converter box to receive digital television signals after June 12th, or it will stop working.
That's my life, looking at TV, sitting outside,
And the TV would stop working.
If the TV stopped working, well, I don't know what I'd do.
57 million Americans have requested coupons for converter boxes for digital TV. 28 million have cashed them in. But the Federal Communications Commission is concerned that many people won't know how to connect the box to their TV. So in Orleans, Jefferson, and St. Bernard parishes, they have a new program where crews will come to your house and connect the box to your TV.
We want to make sure that seniors, that low income, that non-English speaking people are ready for this.
Under FCC directions, a 3-member team from AmeriCorps came to Needy Chatelain's room and set up the converter box so his TV will be ready for digital signals.
Get the converter box, and we set it on the TV, and we hook up all the cables and help them troubleshoot.
Chatelain is one of many seniors the Jefferson Parish Council on Aging was struggling to help until the FCC in-home assistance program started.
it's a big relief. I'm getting on average 5 calls a day for people who look at the box and throw their hands up in the air.
Needy Chatelaine was thankful for the help, but he really enjoyed the crew of helpers.
I don't talk to girls too much anymore, you know, at my age, you know. I used to be a go-getter there in my young days, you know, like you do. But now I'm in reverse. I think I'm going backward.
But it'll be good knowing your TV works.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll be glad it's working.
I'm Bill Capo, Eyewitness News, Action Reporter.
To sign up for the FCC's in-home digital TV converter box connection service, call toll-free 1-888-225-5322. The AmeriCorps crew members have uniforms with the agency logo on them, plus ID badges to show they are legitimate.
The Saints.
Okay, these are just 2 examples, and as someone who's had the privilege of going out with the AmeriCorps members, they're just fantastic. These are young kids, 18 to 24. They have patience. They're respectful. They're just wonderful. We've gotten hugs. We've gotten cookies. We've gotten hot chocolate. We've gotten thanks. Unbelievable. Anyway, these are just a few of the efforts we're doing. We're intensifying our outreach efforts in the short time remaining, and we'll continue to do more and more events. For example, we plan and will be conducting a dozen events around the country this week to mark 30 days to go, a great milestone. We have 30 events today, 30 days to go, 30 events. Emphasizing consumers, they need to act now. They need to get a coupon, purchase their, install their boxes, and adjust or change their antenna. Do it all now. I'm working very closely with NTIA to have the same message, consistent message all over. We'll also be making known these at future events, the location, contact information, where consumers can go to find a walk-in center, how to get in-home installation assistance, and any other questions they have. It's all available at our 800 number, at our webpage as well. Today, actually, FCC staff participating in an event with the mayor of St. Louis and other elected officials to highlight what they need to do to prepare. FCC staff members working with multiple churches in St. Louis to organize a DTV Sunday outreach event in cooperation with the Local Ministers Alliance. Many, many more of these. We're going to churches, we're going to schools, we're going to barbecues, we're going to picnics. Like I said before, we're going to where they are and spread the word. Over the course of the next 30 days, we'll be assessing the resources, preparedness of DMAs across the nation. Where we see needs, we'll be working very closely with local officials, retailers, broadcasters, community groups to meet the needs. Whatever it might be. Could it be a walk-in center, assistance for installations, or just targeted events? On June 12th, and the days immediately after, we're going to be working to troubleshoot potential problems and still offering assistance. Our work doesn't end on the 12th. It almost begins, because that's where we're going to see where we need to put all our resources. All 208 markets will be monitored either by ground staff or through vigilant phone monitoring. Our staff will contact retailers to monitor converter box and antenna supplies. We'll work with broadcasters and others to identify potential technical issues and try to facilitate a resolution. We will also help staff local help centers. Assist consumers may wait until the last minute, and as we know from past transitions, a lot of them do, unfortunately. This effort will continue for several days, several weeks after the transition. Last phase is our critical follow-up period. Coordinators will be in each of the 49 markets, well over 50 more markets, working on issues that may have arisen. As we've learned from other transitions, we will emphasize the importance of rescanning, making sure the converter box is installed correctly, and providing assistance to consumers with antenna questions. Through the efforts of FCC staff in markets throughout the country, supported by the resources FCC have given us here in D.C., coupled with local walk-in centers, converter box installations provided through our contractors and our partners, and an ambitious media plan for the remainder of the transition, we're doing everything we can to prepare consumers for the DTV transition. Thank you for allowing us time to present, and I want to thank all the FCC staff members. They come back from a trip, they're exhausted. They're up at 5 in the morning, they work till 10 at night, they come back and they say, when can I go on my next trip? They're great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm delighted that we have with us today also Bernadette McGuire Rivera of NTIA, who will give a report on NTIA's responsibilities with respect to the coupon program.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Speaking for Secretary Locke and for Assistant Secretary Gomez, I'd like to recognize your leadership in the digital transition and also to thank the FCC staff for their collegiality. They've just been a pleasure to work with as we come to the end of the transition. I have some slides. I just want to run through where we are with the coupon program and talk a little bit about what we're doing in cooperation with the FCC in the consumer education area. Back in January 2009, the transition had stalled a bit. Our waiting list had 4.2 million coupons, and at the end of January, Nielsen had reported that there were 6.5 million households that were not ready for the transition. In February, Congress passed the Delay Act, and President Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which allowed NTIA to have funds for additional coupons and also funding to make some needed improvements to the coupon process. So in March, we were able to clear the waiting list, and at the end of that month, Nielsen reported that there were now 3.9 million households still unready for the transition. As we moved into April and May, we were able to put the processing enhancements in place. I think you're familiar with these. We were able to use first-class mail. We were able to speed it up to where you could get, instead of taking 21 days, you could get your coupon in 9 days. And importantly, we were now able to reissue coupons to households who earlier in the year had, for one reason or another, could not use their coupon. Their 90-day expiration had expired. They had not been able to redeem them, so they were now able to reapply, and they were able to get a coupon so they could take advantage of this offer. At this point now, on April 26th, which I believe was the last Nielsen date, we had 3.5 million unready households still, and we are coordinating very closely with the FCC both on the call centers and the target markets to help people. And like the FCC, after the June 12th date, we will continue to be open, continue to keep our activities going for post-transition assistance, because at that time I think we will get a lot of activity, and those people will really, really, really need our help. Let me talk a little bit, give you just some numbers of where we were. Actually, I think the newscast may have beat me to it. We've given away coupons, about 57 million coupons to about 31 million households. 28 million have been redeemed. There are about 6.7 million active coupons on the street right now. Retailer participation has stayed strong. We have over 2,000 retailers, over 30,000 locations. I think that's more than there are locations for McDonald's. And we have continued. We've got 9 phone retailers, if you prefer to go by phone, and 29 online retailers. And we continue to work closely through our retail center to keep a track of the inventory. And Assistant Secretary Gomez also sent a letter to the retailers urging them to keep boxes in inventory as we complete the transition. Now, our Phase 2 strategy focused on several target markets. And we picked demographic groups with high levels of unready households. But within our 28 markets, we really wanted to look at markets that were behind in their coupon uptake, that they were ordering fewer coupons than we would expect based on their population size. And also, we went in, I believe we had reported before, we had did some focus groups, and we changed our message around to really target it to the unready groups. And the message changed a lot in terms of we're really pushing the urgency of taking action, and we are also giving them a second message that, this is a process. For most people, it would be simple, but if you're having a hard time with it, there are resources to help you learn how to put the box in and even to come and help you install the box yourself. We continue to coordinate nearly every day with the FCC in terms of not just the targeting, because we have overlap in our target markets. We also are coordinating on our media, coordinating on our messages, and most importantly, particularly as we come to the end of the transition, on our outreach. And for us, we are really, in our work with the FCC, we want to link not just the availability of the coupon, but also link the coupon holders to technical support and to other resources that they might need in order to make the transition. I'll give you some pictures. You can see some of the tactics we're using in the last month. Our media outreach is going to be very proactive. We're going to work closely with ethnic media outlets for our earned media, because what we've learned is that the households that are unready are more likely to be African American or Hispanic, and also the new thing we found out is they also tend to, about a third of them are in the 18 to 34 age demographic. What we learned in the focus groups again and again, they said transit media, and people kept referring to the buses. It's a lower income group. They use the bus. So a lot of what we're doing, we've got some pictures of our bus advertising here with our the last minute is here ad. We're going to put it on the sides of buses, back of buses, in the buses, in selected routes that go through areas in, I believe we are in 22 cities, and there will be areas that we know from our zip code and other market research that they're heavy concentrations of the target group and also low coupon users. And again, we are also working with some of our partners to actually do paid advertising. We had been avoiding that throughout because actually paid advertising is very expensive. But right at the end, it can be very effective, and we're investing in actual paid advertising on ethnic media. One of our biggest things that we're very excited about, because we just got them out, the mobile assistance centers. We will have vans and booths that will be going to 24 cities and about 10 different venues with each city. I think each one will be in a city for 4 days. We're going to go to 250 different places with the booth, help people apply for coupons, work with the partner organizations, because in some of these markets, the partner organizations have done coupon exchanges, have sought out donations of boxes, and we'll be working with the FCC staff in those markets to go out again and find the people. We've been calling this our search and rescue. Well, this is our ambulance. And in the target markets, we have 400 partner organizations, but in these target markets, we have 73 different organizations that are going to be on the ground with us, passing out materials, helping people get coupons. And in the last month, this was our, as I said before, our new group that we found, 18 to 34. So this is our new thing. We're trying some social media. It'll be texting. This was something, I believe, that was used with the campaign, and now the Commerce Department is moving into the 21st century. We now have a new staff person who is actually the director of new media. And they've been very excited and working with us on this campaign. As you'll see, when we go in, we're going to do this in 10 markets. It'll go along with the vans in the neighborhoods where we know it's most likely to be somebody who needs a coupon, needs to make the transition. They'll be flashing the sign up on the building. They'll be doing texting. People can have coupon information texted to them. So I know everybody y'all look at me like, that's what we thought too, but every time we describe this to anyone who's under the age of 34, they go crazy about it. So we're hoping that this will be something new for us, and we haven't been able to find another government agency that's used this kind of new media before to get out information, so this is a little test for everybody. Now, we have 2 grantees, Leadership Conference on Civil Rights Education Foundation and the N4A. We gave them additional money to extend their projects beyond the transition date. They're in 42 states and in 80 cities. And one of the things that we're working with them on is having them go to people in their communities. Because we're down to the end now, and there are people, a lot of the people who are left don't have the $20. And so these groups have been very good, but they're pretty good fundraising groups anyway. They've been very good at getting people to either donate boxes. There are, I believe, 8 or 10 coupon exchanges where they're actively sent, get a coupon if you don't need it, mail it into us, and we'll make sure that somebody who can use it gets it. And they're also working with retailers to try to get people to offer a box for $40. So they've been very successful in that. And in fact, I too have a clip of one of our coupon activities. I believe this one's in Minneapolis. Where is it? Great.
So when we first started our DTV education work, we had significant work to do just to reach the levels of public awareness and education we knew we needed to. But over the course of time, because of the work that we and many others have done, we've been able to decrease dramatically the numbers of people who are unaware of the DTV transition and really begin to focus on providing the assistance people needed in order to take the action to prepare for the DTV transition. We know that now we need to go out into communities and find the people who are not yet prepared. So in the last few weeks alone, we've really stepped it up and gone into community gatherings where we're going to find large numbers of people, especially people from those communities that are most likely to still be in need of assistance. So we've gone into churches and houses of worship. We've gone to community meetings and community centers. We've been in schools, at festivals and cultural gatherings. We've been in senior centers and at supermarkets.
The Midtown Global Market is seen as this new development on Lake Street in Minneapolis, which is sort of the heart of Minneapolis. It's also designed in sort of a traditional Latin American market style, mercado style. So there's a lot of different artisans who all have small shops.
We wanted to push a no-cost box, meaning we wanted to find a local retailer that was willing to provide a converter box for $40, so that folks that couldn't afford to pay more than that could only use their coupon and still be able to get a converter box.
And so we knew on a Friday afternoon we'd get a really good crowd.
This event at Minneapolis' Midtown Global Market's part of a national day of action. One more attempt to remove the hurdles, which are the paperwork, the know-how, and the cost.
And then the idea was really to set up an environment where people could do kind of the apply, buy, try model. They could apply for the coupons if they didn't have them. They could actually buy a box, but more importantly, a no-cost box. And then they could try or learn how to connect a converter box to the TVs.
I applied for the coupon in September. Then when I went to go use it, my coupon was expired. So when I came down, heard about it on TV this morning. I am retired and money is a little short now, so this helps.
I talked to a lot of folks who were just like, you really took time to reach out to us. You had an event in a place where we felt comfortable. There was one woman who'd taken 3 buses to get here, but she was like, nobody else does things that are bus accessible. I know from talking to some of our other colleagues here that people really appreciated having the different languages, feeling like they could find someone who spoke Lao or Hmong or Somali or Spanish. You know, there is a good and appropriate way to do work that's culturally competent, and people realize that.
I want to recognize the Leadership Conference, not just for the good work they've done in getting out and meeting with people and creating an excitement and a human aspect to this, but also for creating these great videos that explain the work that everyone's doing. So that's where we are at NTIA. Again, I want to thank the FCC for all of your work with us, and we look forward to working with you and celebrating on June 13th.
Great. I want to thank all of you for really excellent presentations. Daunting as this problem is, I really love seeing this kind of partnership, interagency, cooperation, coordination, public sector, private sector, business, and government really working together. And I want to thank you, Bernie, for making the trek over here again and for your excellent presentation. And you all certainly made good on your promise that you could clear out the wait list there, and you did that with aplomb and dispatch, and that was great. I'm also enormously impressed at your new boss, Secretary Locke, on the job. He has really thrown himself into this. I called over to check in with him yesterday, and they said, he's downstairs taping all kinds of DTV spots right now. So that's really good. So this isn't only a working level, but it's a leadership level, really top to bottom and bottom to top coordinated effort, and I'm just delighted to see that. Roger, thank you. You put a real a human face on this, and I think the enthusiasm that you and everybody else exuded explains why this partnership has been and why this initiative is going as well as it is. And Kathy, thanks for your leadership. And just, the numbers that you gave are so impressive and so much more than we could have thought we would be seeing just a few months ago when you're talking about 170,000, I think you said, installations and thousands of walk-in centers and counseling centers and all of that. I mean, that's just absolutely fantastic. So what we've been through is, the first months after January were really about preparation and developing programs and getting up to speed and strategies for deployment and getting the call center working and how to get boots on the ground in place to make sure that the June event would not be the disaster that I think a February 1 would have been. And once again, I say thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Congress, for the delay that avoided what I think would have been a real consumer meltdown on February 17th. Now we're focused on execution. As you folks also rightly pointed out, we have 30 days to warn unprepared consumers that the transition is here, that they need to act, and to let them know that that help is here, help is available. While we indeed are better prepared for June 12th than we would have been had the transition taken place in February, there will still be disruption. Some consumers will wait too long, although we're doing everything we can to sound the klaxon and minimize that problem. Others will lose some or most of the service they currently receive, even if they've gone through the steps that we prescribe here, because the digital signal propagates differently, and in some places transmitters have been permanently moved far enough away so the new signals may not reach folks who were accustomed to receive the old signals. So not all problems are going to be resolved between now and June 12th, and I think candor compels us to so inform the affected viewers. We're doing what we can to minimize the harm, but again, the effort started late. Some solutions take time and money to implement, money not always easy to come by in an economy as troubled as ours. The Commission has adopted rules to permit broadcasters to deploy distributed transmission systems and fill in translators to improve signal coverage. And we require broadcasters that are losing more than 2% of their existing viewers to run PSAs identifying the signal loss areas. I've directed our FCC teams to work with those communities likely to experience significant changes in service to ensure that they understand the imminent challenges they face. And where there are adequate solutions, we will work to find and implement them. We understand the problems. We're working tirelessly to provide as smooth a transition as possible for the American people. Let me assure you of one other thing, and Roger has already said it, the FCC's commitment, and I know NTIA's too, does not end at the converter box, nor does it end on June 12th. We will be working just as hard in the days and weeks following June 12th as we are now, and I promise you that. In closing, I want to thank the hundreds of people here at the FCC and the thousands of others in industry and service organizations and consumer groups and civic and community associations and many, many more who have given so freely of their efforts to smooth the way to June 12th. My two colleagues here have been indefatigable in their work, not only visiting many, many, many communities around the nation, but also contributing mightily to helping organize our overall efforts. Call centers and consumer outreach spring immediately to mind. Our FCC teams, and I see many of them here in the room today, can only be described as truly remarkable, dedicated, inexhaustible, creative, always willing to walk the extra mile to lend that helping hand, and what really splendid public servants you all are. And again, so many others around the country. Again, this has become a public-private partnering exercise like it should be, and I'm grateful for everyone who is a part of it. And now it's on to June 12. I'm also grateful to our friends in the trade press who do a good job of covering this issue. I wish some of their colleagues in the national media would give the issue a little more attention, because it is going to be a big deal on June 12th. There is going to be some dislocation, and I think the American people, American consumers will tolerate a lot, but they won't tolerate not being told what the facts of the matter and the facts of the situation are. And I think we all have an obligation in government, in media, to make sure that story gets out. With that, Commissioner Elstein, any comments or questions that you might want to ask, please do so.
Thank you. It was a great presentation from all of you. I really enjoyed hearing how much progress we've made. We've certainly come a long way from where we were. Still have a ways to go and 30 days to do it in, but it was great to hear from you all. Bernie, glad to hear all the good work you're doing at NTIA, and the coordination is fantastic that we're seeing between your office and all of your officials, including you and us. It's wonderful to see that. We talked about having that before, and now we really have it. Plus, I kind of like seeing the ads on the sides of the buses, because they go slower than NASCARs, and they crash less often. Roger, you're doing a fantastic job of outreach all across the country, and you crash less often than NASCARs as well, although I think you have as many close calls probably. We enjoyed going with you out there. We were pretty safe. We made it through New Mexico without a scratch. we really got the word out in the number one market in the country. We learned, as we did everywhere we go, that each market is unique, and the fact that there's a lot of unprepared people is because there's so many translators, and they're making a decision not to convert now because they don't have to yet, and yet we warned them and gave them a heads up about what they need to do, and if they wait that they won't have help with the coupon, or they will have to pay out of pocket for the full cost of the conversion. So act now if they want to, but at least they've been warned. And everywhere we go, we learn that, and we found that our staff all across the country is doing such an outstanding job in communities like New Mexico and all across the country, and they are working so hard. We see it everywhere we go. They're fantastic. They care about the people that are affected by this. They're reaching out day and night to get to them. They're leaving behind their families and their home to go across the country and fan out and lead the efforts, and they've made a huge difference and at some personal sacrifice, so we appreciate everything they've done. And of course, Kathy, you've been leading that effort as well, and wonderful to see how much progress you've made, and thank you for your presentation, and Bill for your overall leadership of this effort. We're so glad you're willing to take time with us here at the FCC to lead up this effort and make sure it's coordinated, and you've done a great job. And as we enter these last 30 days, it kind of feels like deja vu all over again. We've been up to a 30-day run-up before, and I was a lot more nervous last time. I feel a lot better now that we've deployed resources in local markets throughout the country to provide assistance to everyone who needs it. I still think there's some people, though, that somehow believe that the June 12th transition won't hold. But I'm here to tell everybody, the American people, broadcasters, and everyone involved that, in fact, the end is near. After June 12th, these stations will be broadcasting only in digital. And we now have, unlike last time, a developed, coordinated plan for a smooth transition. So glad to report that, because I don't know how many times I said we need one of these and never got one until all of you helped us put together what we have now. And because of the DTV Delay Act, the American people were spared the burden, millions of people were spared the burden of having to transition on February 17th before they received a converter box coupon. And Bernie, you've done a great job at NTI getting those out to everybody, getting the backlog done. Now I think that we're ready, but you have to think about how far we have to go. The numbers really tell the story. In February, some people think we got through a lot of the transition, but only 15% of TV households were significantly impacted by stations that turned off their analog signals, and even fewer, only 2.5%, actually saw all of their analog channels cut off. But that's exactly what will happen to every household on June 12th. All, not just some full-power stations, will be ending their analog service then. And people are going to lose their signals if they don't take steps to prepare in the next 30 days. We just talked about that yesterday, some PSAs we filmed here. So while February 17th was a down payment on the DTV transition, the balloon payment comes due on June 12th when the entire country switches. And as your presentation showed, the Commission staff has really put a good infrastructure in place. The goal is to ensure that DTV information assistance are available to consumers wherever they look, whether it's online, radio, TV, newspapers, or at local community events. We're measuring success one household at a time, and we're prepared to meet that challenge. Guided by the day-to-day management of a host of staff from across the agency, we've implemented a multi-pronged approach to consumer support. We're targeting outreach to populations and regions most at risk of disruption. And while every single community transitioning will receive some attention from us, we've identified hotspot communities that will get extra assistance. In total, the Commission's resources in the field will operate 400 walk-in centers, 1,200 mobile clinics, and perform more than 200,000 in-home DTV converter box installations if they're needed. Our national call center will have as many as 4,000 agents that can handle calls in over 100 languages. It's amazing. More than 200 staff are in targeted markets and other communities working with local broadcasters. And of course, as we saw, members of AmeriCorps and firefighters. I was so thrilled to see that story about AmeriCorps, because it was years ago I advocated we should get together with AmeriCorps, but it wasn't until this administration came in place and had a coordinated effort where we actually sat down and talked to everybody about what was possible that we brought them into the picture. And what a remarkable success story that has been. And we saw that today. We're going to make this transition as painless for consumers, and I'm thrilled we have that kind of help across the government to get that done. With all these resources, of course, inefficiencies are bound to exist, so I'm especially pleased that next week, on May 21st, the Commission, together with NAB and all the major networks, the TV station groups, PBS stations, the cable and satellite video industry, will participate in this national soft test to gauge the readiness of our operations and to give unprepared households a sense of what will happen on June 12th. in a very real and personal way. That's why I've long advocated for a national soft test to assess the wherewithal and effectiveness of our call center and field resources. It's like a DTV stress test for consumers, and let's hope we do better than the banks. We have to be able to learn from this outing and make any necessary corrections in time for the big event. And during these times of serious economic distress, as our citizens are really suffering out there, it's really urgent that we make sure everybody can enjoy the benefits of free TV. This is a good time to cut the cord, as you say, and with digital, it looks better. You get your program guide. People want to save money. Here's a place to do it. This is really a benefit for the American people. We talk about sort of the burdens, but ultimately, as we saw from these people, how great it is once they get their TV, they get the better quality picture, the better quality sound, more channels for free over the air. And that's something that really is important at this time. It's not just an unnecessary complication in people's lives, although it is that. With people desperately trying to make ends meet, we're seeing that the 3.5 million households that aren't ready, they're disproportionately low income. Hispanic and African Americans living in insular parts of rural America. They're living in inner cities, but they're spread all over the country. And we know from experience that seniors, people with disabilities, and immigrant communities, those who don't speak English, are at risk. And we are really targeting those folks. We know from experience that some people, even if they've done everything right, they set up the box and they did all the right things, somehow they're still not getting all the channels that they enjoy. So we're going to help everybody. We have the resources now for all of those folks to get help if they need it. If they reach out to us, the answer will come to them. We'll be able to have enough people to answer their phone calls. We have people in the field that can help them if they need it, and if they need somebody in their home, we can do that. We've all seen how exciting it is for some people when they get that TV hooked up. It's like having a brand new TV. So there's real benefits here, and this transition shouldn't be burdensome. Our job is to minimize the inconvenience so that Americans can enjoy the benefits of DTV with as little hassle as possible. I'm pleased we're on the right path to do just that. So thank you to all the hard work of the staff and both this agency and NCAA and across the government for getting all of this great work done.
Thank you. Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a formal statement to read. I do want to incorporate many of the things that my colleagues have said about how far we've come. We do have a long ways to go. I've said for a long time that the DTV transition will be messy regardless of when the hard date is, and that's why it's important to have a hard date. We're down to that sort of margin of error, that standard deviation in the sampling. Not quite exactly sure how many are truly unprepared, and that's why it's important to have that hard date so that we can find out where the unprepared are, because they will be calling. They'll be calling their local broadcasters. They'll be calling us. They'll be calling their members of Congress. They'll be calling all sorts of folks. So I think it's important for us to stay focused on June the 12th, but also the mopping up effort, as I've called it, after June the 12th, that will have to be very, very organized, and we'll have to all be very vigilant. For June the 12th, or the mopping up effort, though, I'd like to ask sort of each of you, is there anything you need from us or anyone else that you don't have?
We may have a more knowledgeable answer to that question on June 14th, but I think right now we have the resources we need. All of the contractual arrangements we've made for the various types of assistance run through June and can go into July as needed. So I think we've prepared for the fact that the busiest week of this transition may be the week after June 12th.
I have to agree with Bill. I think the areas where we've needed additional help is finding ways to help people with the in-home assistance that they need, whether it's installation of the box or troubleshooting their box, or giving them a place where they can go as a walk-in center to maybe go somewhere to actually see how to install their box. And with the contracts, as Bill was saying, I think that issue is being taken care of, and the partnerships with the IAFC and AmeriCorps. I think the other piece, in terms of adequate FCC staff in the field, again, due to the commitment, I think, of a lot of FCC staffers around the agency, I do think, at least based on what we know now and what we're predicting, we should have enough FCC staff in at least the hot spots, and probably, as many as 50 or more markets as well. So I think that, plus the additional resources that have been made available through the call center contract just recently and the media contract that was recently awarded, I think we have all the components that we need to make it as smooth a transition as possible.
I think
we have as much as we can ask. There's always going to be the case where we can have more people, have somebody in every city, every rural area around the country, every tribal land, and it just isn't feasible. But I just can't thank you again for you've given us the resources. You've asked staff to help us out. The field staff has been helping us. The partnerships, LCCR and N4A has been working. We don't know who's FCC and NTIA out in the field. We have so many partnerships. We have so many people helping us. There'll still be problems, as you say, but thank you for the offer, though.
NTIA also will be keeping its basic operations going through the summer, and we're keeping our program office at NTIA for this open about 4 months longer than we had originally planned. I think as we go forward, I've learned to say we never just say that either we have enough money or we have enough resources. I think, but we all just need to be flexible, because one of the story that always comes back to me when I think about the transition and the transition being over is that the last Japanese soldier surrendered in World War II in 1980. So sometime later in the year, maybe even around Christmas time, I think we all just sort of need to have somebody available, because someone's going to need some help, and I think at that point we're going to just get a box out to them as soon as we can.
Well, and in that vein, actually, so I've heard a couple of competing estimates here, but what will be the percentage of the population that's affected? We could say 100% easily, but in terms of the stations that have already converted, the markets that have already converted, and obviously there's an analog stick in every market thanks to our rules, but roughly what sort of tidal wave are we anticipating hit the shore on midnight, June the 12th?
That's very difficult to predict, and one of the principal reasons for our soft test on May 21st is to have an intermediate tidal wave. We hope to get a great number of calls on May 21st and to really wake up a lot of people, and we're thinking that as big as we can make the wave on May 21st, that will reduce the size of the wave on June 12th. But all we can do, I think, is prepare as best we can, and we won't know really how big that wave will be. I certainly agree that we won't reach everyone. There will be people with blank TV screens on June 13th. I wouldn't hazard a number as to guessing how many that will be.
So, and you estimated earlier that, I think it was your presentation, that we might have 4,000 operators. Is that at one time, or is that on a rotating basis? How many at one time?
That will be 4,000 in a day, taking 3 8-hour shifts. But at that point, we'll have 4,000 people available working 24/7 during that key period.
And this is for the FCC call center and the allied call centers as well. So that compare that with what we had for February 17th. That's larger, but considerably.
Yes, that is larger.
Yeah.
That's substantially larger than what we had on the 17th. And again, we think that will be adequate given what we've seen so far from our call volumes, and we will recalibrate once we've gone through the soft test on May 21st when we get a better sense of just what's out there.
Just a couple more questions, Mr. Chairman. And then, since the DTV Delay Act was signed into law, I've been focusing on going to a lot more markets, but especially those along the border that have unique circumstances. Obviously, a high non-English speaking population, and also issues regarding Spanish-speaking people who live in the United States who watch analog television from Mexico and will continue to do so. And in some cases, there's a distrust of the U.S. federal government as well. So I spent a lot of time out there and working with a lot of those communities. Do we have a figure that captures the unpreparedness of those communities, either along the border or of non-English speakers in general?
Yes, the available data do indicate that non-English speakers are especially unprepared, and that the Hispanic community is substantially less prepared than a number of other demographic groups. We've been targeting that community in a number of respects. We made sure that the Consumers Union brochure that we brought out recently was promptly available in Spanish text. And just as one example, we're very happy that working with Univision, we managed to get thousands of copies of that out through Univision for the Cinco de Mayo celebrations shortly ago, because we knew that there would be lots of the Hispanic community getting together. We had those in the hands of Univision to be handed out at all of these celebrations across the areas that were mostly have Hispanic concentrations.
So on Cinco de Mayo, you were focusing on el 12 de junio, huh?
Exactly.
12th of June?
Yeah.
Que bueno. Okay. With rescanning being the big issue, one of the many issues, but I think a huge issue on June 13th for those folks who did do everything right and might not know to rescan. When I go to these markets, I talk to broadcasters, and I say, you've really got to educate folks on the rescanning effort because they're watching you now, but they won't be able to see you on the 13th of June. What sort of plan do we have set up to reach those people who haven't rescanned, who won't be able to receive television signals, although they have a converter box? I've been really thanking, by the way, the broadcasters who are radio only, who are covering this story a lot. There are a lot of them out there. They obviously have absolutely no incentive economically to talk to people and have them watch TV versus their radio stations because these are radio only owners. But they have been doing a great public service. In terms of educating consumers on this. So certainly radio and newspapers, but is there any sort of concerted, focused effort to focus on alternative media to remind folks after the fact when they can't watch television to rescan their boxes?
Yes, with our media consultants, we will be concentrating on other media beyond television to try to reach these folks and make sure that they know how to get help if they've lost their analog signals. There's also the analog nightlight program, which we're moving forward with, and to the extent possible, without causing interference with the new digital transmissions, we will be encouraging stations to continue with their analog nightlight services so that people who still only have an analog signal will see information about what they can still do.
And then lastly, on coupons. So have we noticed a higher redemption rate recently? I know overall the redemption rate's like 55, 56%. But as we get closer to the deadline, do you find that more people are actually redeeming those coupons?
I don't have the data with me. Actually, I think it's sort of
redemption rate's falling.
I mean, it's not down below 50%, but it's gliding. So
interesting. So the last question I'll ask, the answer could be a bombshell answer. I don't know. We'll find out. Stay tuned. Don't touch that dial. Are we going to run out of money again?
Speaking for me, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Well, actually, we've got 9 million coupons ready to distribute, and so that's like 5 million households, and assume that and like I said before, we have quite a few active coupons on the street, and there are 3.5 million households. So we should have enough, but who knows?
But at the current rate,
at the current rate of
continue.
redemption, I believe that our planning now says that we should be, okay, again, should be. This is Bernie McGuire talking, not necessarily the Commerce Department. Should be, and we've also planned for a spike twice over our daily rate today when we get up to the date.
Maybe we'll know more after May 21st with the soft test.
I think the soft test will be very valuable in terms of that, because that's very important data to have, and then we can be ready.
Okay, to be continued then. Could be a cliffhanger.
Quick question. Are we going to be able to ramp up the call centers for the May 21st event?
Yes, we won't have the full 4,000 available at that time, but we are trying to make projections and make sure that we have adequate resources for the soft test.
Okay. Commissioner Elstein, you wanted to ask a question?
Well, thank you all for your great questions, and thank you, Comisionado, for all your work along the border there. A nosotros. Rob and I have taken a special interest along the border, and he's done a great job of keeping the focus on this. And, of course, thanks for all your work on the call centers, too, and your leadership on that, and so many issues in keeping us on track. I just had one quick question about the contracts. I've been very interested in timing on those. And when do you anticipate the FCC having made all the awards to the 3 categories of contracts, that is, basic installation, expert installation, and the walk-in centers? Do you think that'll be done pretty soon here?
Yes, we've made most of the awards at this point, and we should have all the awards finished this week.
Good. That'd be great. Thank you.
Very good. We thank you all. When January came around and I found I was going to be presiding over this, I had some measure of trepidation and fear about where we might be headed, but it's actually turned into really an inspiring and in many ways an enjoyable thing, and not to downplay the problems that we might run into or the seriousness of the effort, but again, just seeing all of this enthusiasm and the partnerships that I talked about before. So we look forward to the month ahead. We will convene again and probably have a little larger assemblage of folks even in here in June at our next agenda meeting. And in the meantime, Godspeed to us all. Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any announcements they wish to make? With not, Madam Secretary, would you care to announce the next meeting?
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission will be on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2009.
Great. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.